Epilogue. The Prince's Godparents. Third agradi of Chevieramni, first agradi after Quilahedi. Garendo moved to a village in Jarissa, one not too close to the borders, but still small enough that he was unlikely to be found. He called himself Rilesidor, which meant freed by roses. It was a common name for escaped slaves, who went to Quinia by following the roses on the ground, the Daeliran road, and the roses in the sky, the Rose Lady, or Selina Korrisiek constellation, which always pointed southwest. The townsfolk started calling him Izeli. He actually studied theology, as Elinsco's impression had been right, and he had not been well catechized, but was too stubborn to admit it, and eventually figured out that modalism was wrong, and he became the church's organist. Eventually, he managed to find a wife. He did tell her the truth about his past, and while it made her wary of him, she came to see that he had changed and truly regretted his actions. A few years after the battle, once things had been cleaned up and Quinia was at peace again, Canzí joined the Frielenites and became Sister Farelia Ezeia. She was good friends with Sister Hevadelia, who was like her but tall and Delayan. Despite having been born into the Quinian rite, Sister Hevadelia had decided not only to become a Quinian nun, but to become one that lived on a mountain in the middle of nowhere in another country. She joked it was to get away from her siblings, of which there were more than Elinsco had, by one. At least, everyone thought she was joking. She often quoted her twin, who could not be more different than her if she tried in both appearance and personality, Pihi, as having asked her why she would want to move to another country and pray, farm, hunt, and make beer for the rest of her life. Sister Hevadelia, or Kali, as she was then, had responded that she had already decided to join the Frielenites and did not need any further convincing. They got along well. While other people were always trying to force conversation, they were most comfortable in silence. Luzmo and Vila decided to move to Carvino, buying some land near the friary. Luzmo was very happy to stop moving around and got apologies from some of his old bullies. Some still found him strange, but it was not nearly as bad as when he was a boy. People also liked how he had wanted to help Viasinia and his family's role in Garento's defeat. The fact Vila had been part of that managed to shield her from most of the negative opinions of Soledo. Their first child was born around 7 months after Queen Silenda regained her throne, a girl named Krathias, but whom Viasinia made Thiasinia. Elinsco and Thefia were her godparents. Luzmo finally understood what Kara and Vila's silent exchange had meant. Speaking of Elinsco and Thefia, they stayed in Casedo a little longer, but eventually left and went back to their family's farm in Sillery. They could not both be soldiers if they had young children, and neither wanted to stay if the other could not. Their first son, Ishon, was born just after they left, about a year after Thiasinia, and they returned to Sillery once Thefia was well enough to make the journey. Belashal also insisted that he and his wife be the godparents. Prince Gerol was very disappointed that he was no longer living with Jarissa King. "So you've finally come back to us," Faria said when they returned. "You two ready to stop playing hero and start supporting your family?" Thefia rolled her eyes. "Soldier pays better than farmer, and you know it, Fahikisa." Faria smiled a little, then hugged her. "I've missed you, Thefakisa." "So have I," said Thefia. "Now, can you let go of me before you smother my son?" Lonxo married Luzma Rocha just after Ishon was born. They stayed in Casedo for a while, but got tired of the disdain for beratings that he, his wife, and eventually their children faced, even with Lonxo's role in Garento's defeat, and decided that just being Menzisno Neslincier's grandson was better than being Menzisno Neslincier's grandson and a stupid heretical peasant. He started going by Lonxo Riza again, and then had to reassure his friends that it was really him and not an impostor. So he and his family went back to Beretta, though he remained a soldier. Though Elinsco, Thefia, and Lonxo were now apart from the Queen Silenda, they sent letters and visited Ferranyahos. Prince Gerol miraculously was able to court several girls, but eventually chose Lady Riadelia, partly because eventually he did find that he loved her, and partly because her aunt had decided that the Jarisse were finally ready for the warm relations of the time before the Double War, and thought a marriage with Quinia would be useful to show that. The prince and his wife tried to take over King Ridero's old position leading the army, but his sister and her husband found something they agreed on and stopped him for the good of the country. The new king took the position. Prince Gerol also inherited the title of Royal Doorholder, which seemed to be Greshel's version of the Eshalado Gregio, though passed through the male line rather than the female one. There was also a fearsome argument between Prince Gettle and the new king over who should inherit Nick. Prince Gettle said he should get the horse, since it had been his father's, while the new king and his wife did not want him having such a legendarily powerful horse. Now, who was this new king? Well, while her friends and brother married the people they loved, things were different for Queen Silenda. Akisa wanted to regain what the scandal with Duke Garendo had lost to them, and despite the fact she could hear Lonxeux, or Lonxeurisa by then, protesting, she agreed to marry Zebocron. Nobles married for money and alliance, and heirs. If they also loved each other, as the queen's parents had, that was great for them, but not the main reason why they married. Well, unless they ran off with some peasant or a noble they actually loved and decided to risk the wrath of the court, but that was rare. King Louchon the Greater had married a poor widowed baker after his first wife died, and he had barely been able to keep the country together and out of war, with either herself or other countries, and his queen alive, though the girls half his age whose parents had been wanting a new alliance were relieved. Though they did not like each other very much, Zebocron and Queen Silenda did not argue too much, in public, at least, and Zebocron protected her as fiercely as King Ridero had protected his wife. Given that they did not love each other the way a husband and wife should, they did have grounds for an annulment, but that would look bad, and their children would have to either split their time between two provinces or not get to see one of their parents as often as they should. Also, Zebocron and Prince Gettle, who, well, not as large as the previous or current king, no longer looked like he was made of sticks, enjoyed each other's company. Duke Garendo died after eating some bad fish at their wedding feast. There was plenty of reason to suspect he had been poisoned, but the pool of suspects was essentially everyone who had been in the general area that day, and no one liked him. So the investigation was quickly dropped. Their first child was a boy, born on the very inconvenient 2nd Agradi of Chevieramni, 912, which was the last Agradi of Eranyhos, Quilahedi. He was baptized on the Shedianyedi of the next week, at the Cathedral of the Lady of Mercy in Savine, as soon as the boy's godparents made the journey. Prince Gettle sighed. "Why could you not make it me?" he asked. "I am your brother." "But not the best candidate for this position," said Queen Silenda. He scowled. "You are just angry that I called you short. Vertically challenged, brother!" Prince Gettle looked at Zebocron. "He is well over a head taller than you." "Be quiet!" she snapped. "May I remind you that we are in a church?" Zebocron said, "and I would quite prefer it if we could keep our son asleep at least until the salt." Part of the Quinian rite baptism involved putting salt on the person's tongue. The siblings blinked, then relaxed. "Though I would like to know, Sisha, whom did you choose as the godparents? Should they not have arrived by now?" Zebocron continued. Queen Silenda looked up at him, smiling in a way that had evolved from mischievousness. "Oh, they should arrive soon, my dear Zebocron." As if on cue, Lonxeurisa and Luz Marosha came through the doors, the latter carrying their daughter, Ilia Inswa, a girl of about 2 who had decided her new favorite food was her mother's wimple. Lonxeurisa smiled. "Good morning, Zebocron," he said, throwing his arm around the king as if they were old friends, his dislike of touching him outweighed by his desire to be the one annoying him for once. Zebocron just barely kept his face from collapsing into dismay. "You did not!" Luz Marosha shyly held up a letter. Queen Silenda just kept smiling. "Meet our son's godfather." Zebocron pinched the bridge of his nose. "Why?" "Well, we're friends, aren't we?" Lonxeurisa said. "I'd say her friend deserves to be her son's godfather." Zebocron sighed and threw off the other man's arm, straightening his shirt and coat, but stopped. "Wait, godfather?" He looked at his wife. "You mean she is not Eshikiso's godmother?" Queen Silenda shook her head. "But I believe I found a better candidate." Elinsco and Thefia arrived. Thefia was with child, and Elinsco would have been holding her hand if he did not need to carry Ishon. "I hope we ain't too late," Thefia said. Queen Silenda shook her head again, her smile friendly now. "Oh no, not at all." "Please tell me it is her," Zebocron said. "Her father was a soldier, but at least it is only him." Elinsco glared at him, brandishing his hook. Thefia took his arm. Ishon was smiling. "You call her that again, and you'll know how the Jarissa King felt," Elinsco said, his voice low but angry. Ilia Inswa giggled, which made Luz Marosha's face turn red. Zebocron smiled a little. "Is he trying to look threatening?" he thought. "My goodness, it looks comical. Even the child knows it." Oh, but I did not call her that. I called her father that. And please, Garendo had a name, and you will not die saying it. Everyone else, except Prince Geralt, Princess Riadelia, and Ilia Insua, flinched at the name. Ishon stared at him. Zebocron sighed and muttered something. Nisko's eyes narrowed, the anger in his voice only growing. The point still stands. Queen Silenda's smile returned to its previous almost mischief. Well, no, she is not Ashikizo's godmother. That honor will go to a mentor of mine. Zebocron looked down at his wife. So if neither of them is the godmother, then who? Oh, she's on her way. Didn't want to come with us. Long Cerise, I answered. Zebocron looked at the ceiling, closing his eyes. Please, no, not her. Akiso! The call announced the entrance of Ilzisnia, followed by her son and Via Silenta. Zebocron groaned. Prince Geralt smiled. Ilzisnia, Vildiormos, and Via Silenta came over. Good morning, Masika, Prince Geralt said. Zebocron sighed and looked at Ilzisnia. It is Quinia now, he said. You should know this. Or are you going to prove me right about how news travels in Bereda? We get news, Via Silenta said. She chooses to annoy you. Somehow I doubt that, said Zebocron. He looked at Queen Silenda. So these are the people you choose to be the godparents of the future king of Quinia? He gestured to Lonxoriza and Ilzisnia. A couple of illiterate borgni, the grandson of a corrupt merchant, sorry, I have said the same thing twice, and a criminal. Former criminal, Ilzisnia corrected, her gaze hard. And call us those things one more time, I dare you, Lonxoriza said, his tone grave. Could be worse things, Lisko thought. I do not care, Zebocron said. Queen Silenta just kept smiling up at him. That is not how I see it, my dear Zebocishel. I have chosen the godparents of my son to be one of my dear friends who helped defeat the Jarissa King, and a reformed criminal, proof that people can become better, as well as the widow of a great hero, Elinsco Bombir. They sound like the perfect people to be the godparents of the Prince of Quinia. She also knew they were people he would not like. Zebocron sighed, but did not try to stop her, though he cast dirty looks and rude comments in the directions of the Beradens the whole time. Next time, he muttered, I am choosing the godparents. There would be a couple next times, just enough to give them a couple spares. The Queen's friends all had at least double that number survive to adulthood. The end.